Hi guys. Oh, it is a gorgeous fall day here on the East Coast. It's a little nippy. There's a nice cool breeze in the air and the trees are all changing color. It's just beautiful and it's a perfect day to be playing in the sandbox and creating something for Halloween because that's coming faster than we realize. So I've been looking forward to today. I took last Saturday off, didn't have a live. Wanted to do video, had a whole bunch of issues there, so unfortunately we didn't have anything last week. But I really missed you guys. I missed doing this. This is always so much fun. It's a creative opportunity to just play and share some stuff, and I'm really glad that I'm back today. We are doing something wicked, which is this awesome little witch. This is an older design. I kind of reworked it and updated it and added some new product to it. And I think she's fun and she works up really easy, and I think you're really going to enjoy it because I had a blast redoing her. She was so much fun. What else? Oh, we have a giveaway. This week a bunch of swag came in, so I have some stuff to share with you guys. So we're going to have 3 things to give away this week. A couple of you are going to get a funky new mouse pad. If you're going to be painting and decorating and zooming, then you're going to need a good mouse pad. So we have a couple of those to give away, and I have a great little gift. Since I'm drinking coffee, somebody else is getting a coffee cup, so you're going to get one of these, and it's loaded with stuff. There's a set of the Dynasty IPC blenders, the point blenders, the oval blenders, and the flat top blender. There is some of DecoArt's new holographic illusions in there, and there's some enchanted shimmer in there, plus there's a couple of stencils and this great little coffee cup. So one of you is going to go away with that. All you have to do is like the Tracy Moreau Live Facebook page, leave a comment in the comment section and tell us where you're watching from, and that's it, you're entered. So that, we've got some great little stuff to give away. And what else? What else? I have a great plan for next Saturday. We're going to do something really Christmassy and really fun, and it's going to finish off a series that I've been doing over the course of the last few years. So watch for that. It's going to be a fun one, and I'm really excited about it. So I'm going to have another mouthful of coffee, and we're going to be ready to get going. Good coffee too. So we're working with a couple of different things today. They're a little out of the ordinary. The original pattern for this used a product called Texture Fiero, which is no longer being made. So I decided to switch it over and see if we could find a comparable product that DecoArt makes, and I did. We found this. This is DecoArt Suede. This one comes in a variety of colors. I love this product. It has a fine sandy grain or grit texture to it, and 2 coats gives you a nice low texture, but it's enough to create a really interesting look when you're dry brushing. So to base coat and prepare this surface, it's very simple. So it's 2 light cross-hatched applications of the Texture Suede. It doesn't really matter what color you use because you're going to paint it black afterwards anyhow. So if you can't find the midnight blue, then it really doesn't matter. Just find any color. You're going to paint it black anyhow. So 2 light coats of this, cross-hatched, let it dry before you reapply. And then once it's completely dry, put 2 coats of lamp black on. And it gives you a nice uniform matte black finish, but it has this slightly greeny texture. It's a little sandy feeling, but it's not harsh and it's not sharp. So it's ideal for this technique. Now, I put that aside, and we're going to talk about the colors I'm using. I'm using 3 shades of green. I'm using the antique green, which is our mid value. I'm using margarita, and then I'm using this thermal green, this neon green. You can find this in Hobby Lobby and in Michael's stores in particular. They have it especially at this time of year for Halloween. So these are the 3 greens we're going to use for her gorgeous face. And we're going to use some enchanted shimmer. These are the new iridescent top coats from Decor. We're going to use those to punch up these colors. And there has to be glitter, so I have the Galaxy Ultraviolet glitter. I'm going to use that in this as well. So these are the fun colors. Now our purples are really simple. We're using lavender and brilliant purple. The original pattern used purple pizzazz, but that color is discontinued, I believe. So I switched over to the brilliant purple. So we have a relatively short color list, and it's going to be pretty straightforward. So let's get started with the most obvious thing. So those eyes are going to be base coated with warm white. I'm just using a number 2 rigger or a number 0, just something to put that white in the eyes. And you're just filling in the shape. Neatness doesn't really count. And you have to remember that you are painting over a textured surface. So this is not going to be as smooth as working on a regular wood surface. And as frustrating as that might be when you're trying to base coat and get a uniform color, in the end it is going to work in our favor. There we go. So I forgot to put out the plantation pine, but I'll get that when I need it. Now I'm going to use Margarita, because she's got to, if you wanted to, you could make her eyes purple. I think she'd be cool with purple eyes too. And so that iris is getting base coated with that Margarita, that bright green. These green eyes just help make her that much more creepy. And creepy's good, especially at this time of year. I really like this piece. It's not difficult to paint. It looks like it is, but it really isn't. So we have her eyes base coated. So while that is drying, we're going to move on to doing her hat, which means putting in some of these base colors. And we're going to start with that brilliant purple. And I'm going to put a little of that, oh, new bottle. A little bit of that lavender on my palette. So on this area that we're going to cover in here is fairly large. Apparently my fingers don't work today. So we're going to go with the large point blender, and you just pick up a small amount of color on the tip of that brush and then rouge it on the surface like so that you get a fairly even distribution of color. And the technique is simple. It's kind of like putting blush on your face. You're going to just rouge that color on like that. Sort of a quasi dry brush. Now this color is going to extend out to about here. If you look at this dip, this low point in the hat, we want very little color in here. So this is the top of that flip or fold in her hat. So it's going to come to about here, and then you're going to work almost a triangle shape to here, where see where this line rises. That's going to be the high point of that fold in her hat. So it's sort of a triangle coming from that brim.
Is rouging the same as dry brushing?
Yes, it is. It's just, when I say rouging, it's because I'm sort of working it as if you would apply it to your face. So it's almost a small circle. And then again here, you see it's like 3 triangles going across to give you that shape of her hat. Just like so. Now, this piece relies heavily on what's referred to as lost edges. So if you have a look at how this color just sort of runs out, it implies that it's getting lost in that shadow. This is what's referred to as a lost edge. We never see a defined, clean edge for this part of the hat or this side of the face or the jawline. It just sort of blends into the shadows. So I'm going to do the same thing on this part of her hat. Oops, too much paint there. And I'm going to try to keep this edge clean. And I'm going to pull the color across, like so. Whenever you run out of color, don't be afraid to pick up some more. And if you get too much, that's okay too. I'm going to bring it about halfway. I want that color to sort of run out. And again, this little fold in the hat, I'm going to do that as well. There should be a space between, but if they get a little blurry, we can touch that up a little further on. So the hat is starting to take shape. I refer to using these point blenders as it's like holding a big crayon. And I really like how they allow you to sort of move color quite softly because they're a nice soft brush. But they're ideal for this. I have the Mezzaluna brushes. I don't know if you're familiar with those. These ones here. These are sort of like the crescent brush, the old crescent brush, and there's a blend of synthetics in this. These are a little stiffer. These will work too, but I like the softer application from this point blender. So either one will work. So if you're more comfortable using a traditional dry brush, then by all means use the traditional one. I just prefer these for this in particular because I like the softness that I get from it. Okay, so getting there. So I'm going to move up and do her hat, the top point on her hat. Just like that. I'm not scrubbing hard. There's no need to, really. I like this texture catches that color, and so it gives you quite a bit of impact with very little paint. And you'll notice that I'm bringing it about, maybe about halfway, 3/4 of the way. There we go. So we've got our first layer of color in, and this is where we switch over to using some of that lavender. Now that lavender is a little lighter, and so we're going to get a brighter punch of color from it.
Can we buy a point blender on your website?
I do not have the point blenders on my website. They are available from maureenbaker.com or thebrushguys.com. If you're going to the Brush Guys, don't forget to use that Tracy M coupon code. It'll give you an additional discount off of your purchase. The Brush Guys have great service too. So you can see that this is starting to brighten and those shadows are moving back. Edges are being a little more defined. Love this lavender.
Sandy Peters would like to see the brush a little closer to the camera.
Okay, I can do that. This is the IPC. This is the large point blender. They come in 3 sizes. This is the medium. And this is the small. The ones that I use the most tend to be the large and the medium. The small I do use, but less frequently. I find that I get the most out of these two larger sizes.
Does anyone in Canada carry these brushes?
Yes, Country Bear.
Country Bear.
You can also contact stockade.ca. As they are a Dynasty distributor, you should be able to order them through them as well. There comes a point where you can just scrub this color quite nicely. Now from this point, we're just building up those highlights on her hat, and this will help shape her very nicely. You can see her hat's coming together quite nicely. So it's essentially just layers and layers and layers of color until you get where you want to be. And I like a fairly clean edge, so I tend to come back and clean up edges a little so that they're nice and sharp, or sharper. So it gives you a nice contrast between that black and that purple. This is about the only place that it's really important to get that clean edge.
No water on IPC brush?
No water on an IPC brush. This is just straight into the paint and then sort of rouge it onto the surface to distribute the paint through it. And they are very easy to clean. I use just a little bit of Dackworth's Brush Magic on it, and some cool water is about all you need to get the paint out of these brushes. Just make sure that you clean them right away. Her hat is coming along very nicely. Now I'm going to take the edge of my point blender. Oops, I got a little too much paint in there. So I'm going to switch over to my small point blender, this is where I use this one the most, is for cleaning up little whoopsies, because I do make them. So I just put a little water in this one, and I'm going to pull that little bit of color along the edge of the hat, just to sharpen that edge. And because I had too much paint on that other brush, I didn't have to really pick up much. So that smaller point blender is excellent for these little details, those fine sharp lines at the edge of the brim of the hat. And it's surprising how quickly those little lines make such a difference.
Is the IPC brush used in any other way?
Yes, you can use it as a traditional blender, like a mop. You can use it with pastels. You can use it with your colored pencils. If you're using any type of a thinner or odorless terp to move your color pencils, it'll give you really tight control, and it really softens colors beautifully. If you work in oils, it's ideal for oils as well, for blending color. It's also great with alcohol inks. So that's what IPC stands for, is ink, pastel, and chalk. It is an ideal multimedia brush because you can work it with so many different mediums quite easily. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that lavender. And this is where I like cleaning up some of those edges, making them nice and sharp, is just by using that little point blender for those details. And you can see how nicely, even with acrylics, how nicely it softens color. Now I've got a little bit of warm white on this little blender, and I'm going to just lightly add a brighter highlight to this impact point on the forward side of that hat. And it is a very light. You don't want a ton of paint. And I'm just barely touching the surface. I want to sort of highlight that texture. So it is not heavy application. And you can see how bright it suddenly just pops. So it is a small amount of warm white, and I have rouged it into my brush so that I have control. And it's a light touch. You can see that it's just catching.
Is it Country Bear Wood?
Country Bear Wood, yeah. And there's the hyphens in between. Yep. Just trying to get you a link for Country Bear. So there is our highlight, and it's a light touch. I'm not working hard to get that highlight. So we've created 3 values of purple. We started with that brilliant purple as our base. Then we went to that lavender. And then for that final highlight, it's a little of the warm white in the dirty brush. So it's picking up a little of that purple from the lavender, and it gives us a brighter highlight right where we need it on those folds, and that creates that rippled effect that you see in the brim of the hat. Now you can putz with this as long as you want. If you want to make the hat a little more solid, a little less subdued and shadowed, then by all means you can go right ahead and put as much color in as you like. That's entirely up to you. I really like that sort of the mystery that's created by having those lost edges. I really like how that looks. So I'm going to clean out my point blenders just a little bit. I'm going to start working on her face. I think our eyes are dry. So I'm going to grab my rigger, and I'm going to put another coat of warm white in here so that we have a nice bright white. I think she's just wonderfully creepy.
Do you still have to use dedicated brushes for each type of media?
Yes, I always recommend that. It just, so then you're not getting cross-contamination from one medium to the other. Even in mixed media, when we add different mediums into something, each coat has to be completely dry before you start applying the next layer, so to speak. So I always recommend having a separate set of brushes for each media. So if you work primarily in acrylic and you don't deviate from that anymore, then just that, then one set of IPC brushes are fantastic. If you work in a variety of media, then I would try to segregate them as much as possible and just keep them a set separate for each type of media. And there's another shade of green on our eyeballs. Not exactly the kind of gal you'd want to take home to mom, but I think she's pretty cool. Okay, so I've got two coats of green and 2 coats of white. I'm going to give that a chance to dry, and we're going to start working on her face. Now she has tons of wrinkles. I love that about her. And I'm going to use the small IPC to start with, and I'm using antique green. Now I'm using it I'm a little more generous with the green. I'll rouge that into the brush. Now everything that we do on her face is going to rely on the light source, which is coming from this side. So I start my color at the edge of her face. And again, that's where that little point blender comes in handy. And I try to let the color run out just before I hit that wrinkle. So in these smaller wrinkles, it's a little tighter, but that's when that small blender comes in very handy. So you just let the color run out before you meet the next wrinkle, and you keep the brightest value on the left side, right on that line. You have to think of her face in the same manner as we did the hat, leaving shadows in place. I love that she's got this big honking bump on her nose, right there. Like I said, it's like working with a big crayon in your hand. It's great. And this dry brushing is very forgiving. So this first color, this antique green, is a little muddy looking, but it sort of sets the color for the next few layers. Gives us something to build on. I'm going to come down onto her cheek, right here. And if your paint gets a little heavy, that's okay.
Do you rinse the brushes and then use them for a new color while they're still damp?
I try to keep them dry. I keep a piece of shop towel or paper towel, and you can take the bulk of the paint out simply by doing this.
They can't see that.
So if you're, they can't see that. See what a smart. So yeah, you can just take a little piece of shop towel. If you're going to be changing colors frequently, you can use a little hand sanitizer. This is the great thing about alcohol. Well, there's a number of great things about alcohol, but if you're going to clean a brush, just touch it to the surface. The alcohol will pull that color out very quickly, like so. And then usually 2 or 3 quick rubs there, we've just about got it all out. The nice part about the alcohol in this case is that it will evaporate very, very quickly, and your brush will be dry for the next color. So 2 birds, 1 stone. You managed to get all of the color out of your brush, and it doesn't stay wet for very long because the alcohol evaporates. So yeah, brush is dry already. Now I can go back in and get the rest of my green. So this essentially is just kind of, I guess, like a base coat, if we're just not putting in a solid color, but building a base. I love this green. It's when we start putting in all of these layers of color. I'm a big proponent of applying color in layers, layers and layers and layers. It gives you great depth and the ability to layer a variety of different colors. So in this case, I mean, we're working with a muddy, earthy green, and then we're going to switch over to this vibrant, bright green in the margarita, and then we're really going to get bright with some of that neon green. But you still have to have a base of color. So she's got an interesting upper lip that I really like. And in order to create it, you just remember, like doing the hat where we had the 3 triangles, you're going to do the same thing on her upper lip. Just like so. Just these little stripes of color are going to help build those creases in her upper lip. she's fun and she's easy, and this color goes on really neat. Now I wanted a little bit of a cleft in her chin, so that means I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap when I dry brush this. So there, by doing that, see, we've got a little cleft in her chin. Just makes her a little more interesting. And then there's this jawline, you know. She's obviously an aging lady, so she's going to have that wattle under her chin. So let's dry brush that in. She's so much fun. She's got this great crease on her face. Right there. Probably from all that laughing, cackling. So this part is just, I mean, you can putz with this till the cows come home.
Are you scrubbing off the, when you're scrubbing off the paint on your paper towel, are you doing it with the point straight down, or are you doing it at an angle like you're using the X?
I do it at an angle. If you go straight down, it tends to splay the brush. So I use the brush, clean the brush in the same fashion that I paint with it. So it just helps the brush keep its shape. So she's coming along rather quickly. That's the nice part about this, is it does work up very fast. And in the end, it might look a little rough, but I've got some really simple techniques for cleaning up all of these little areas that perhaps aren't as crisp and clean as you would like them to be. So we are getting there. So I think we're about ready to start the next step. Oh, I almost forgot. Mrs. has got a great little wart on the side of her nose, and I want to make sure that that gets the attention it deserves. And I want to get that eyelid right here. Whoops, a little too much paint. That's okay. All right, now we're cooking with gas.
Oh, here's a great question. Where do you get your inspiration for your patterns?
Oh, they come from all over. Sometimes it's, you know, photographs that I see. Sometimes it's the season. Sometimes I just sit and doodle, and whatever happens, happens. But in this particular case, I really wanted a witch that was not the cutesy witch, not the little one. I wanted somebody that was creepy cute. And so I perused the web and I came across a photograph from Snow White. Do you remember the witch from Snow White? And I thought she was the perfect combination of cute and creepy. And so I sat down and I took inspiration from that, and this is what I came up with. The witch in Snow White is just, she's cute, she's creepy, and she's awesome.
What is the purpose of the suede paint?
The suede paint is a texture. It has a nice, almost dead flat finish to it. When you have it painted onto a surface, it really does look like suede. It has that sort of soft brushed look to it, and it looks really, really nice. I love it in the darker colors and in the earth tones. Terracotta color is my favorite, but I do like how that visual texture that it creates. But in this case, that fine visual texture also becomes the base for the texture in this. So my next color is that margarita. So this is where we start highlighting our girl here.
Is it like chocolate gesso?
Not quite that flat. And then it has a sandy texture to it. So there is our highlight going on. This is the margarita. You can see how it drastically changes that antique green and gets brighter already. And you can pull it out a little bit. Don't be shy with it. I love getting like bright spots on this old girl. I think it makes her more interesting and more fun. And she quickly takes shape.
And where do you get the suede paint?
Suede paint is available at Michael's and Hobby Lobby and Joann's. It was voted in January when we took a lot of new product to the AFCI show in Phoenix, which is the Association for Creative Industries. It is the largest arts and craft trade show for us every year. And well, in North America anyway. And it was voted as Best New Product of the Year. It is unique. It has some unique features. It will work on furniture. It works on craft items. It adheres to virtually anything. This stuff is awesome. And it comes in some really great decorator colors, so you can work on all kinds of things with it. But for me, one of the things that appeals to me the most is the actual texture, the tactile texture, and I can create some really fun visual effects using it. And it works really well for this old girl. And as you can see, those highlights are really starting to pop, and her face is taking shape quite nicely.
And we've converted somebody to the scary and skull stuff.
Oh, have you?
She actually just broke out the voodoo teddy bear pattern.
The voodoo teddy bear. Oh my goodness. That one got me into a lot of trouble. I discovered after doing that there's certain things you don't do to a teddy bear without upsetting a lot of people. So I'm very careful now about what I stick pins in. And a couple of weeks ago I did it to a unicorn. There we go. So you can see that change in value, adding that highlight to those areas, immediately starts to add depth to the shaded areas. I like this old girl.
What brush did you use to apply the suede?
The suede, actually, I used my fugly brush. I know you're going to ask me what's a fugly brush. This is my fugly brush. This one has seen better days. I absolutely love these. They're a natural hair brush. This one has obviously gotten a tremendous amount of use. This is my original fugly brush. These are workhorses. They're great for distributing a lot of paint. I use them for creating textures. I use them for creating wood grain effects. They're just an all-around a really solid brush for doing this. This one I've had for over a year, and it has done more than it probably should have. It looks pretty rough, but it's a great brush. When they're new, they look like this. This is a Dynasty Encaustic Oval. It's a 1-inch oval. It is a great brush. It's like I said, a natural hair. It will work wonders for you for creating all sorts of interesting textures. So that barn board effect that I do, I use this brush for. See, the fugly brush was shedding. So this is just fun doing this part, getting her up to snuff, getting those highlights in place. But the really fun part begins when we do a little of this with that neon green. You're going to love it. So I'm going to pop a little more color in a few places. And pay a little attention around her eyes here. I haven't been giving her So I'm going to be a little more attention, a little tighter detail using just the tip of that brush to give her a more defined eye. And I'm going to do the same thing up here so that we have a more defined lid. I felt her lid was getting a little lost in there. There we go. I'm going to do the same over here. Now I do take some of my other brushes, liners and whatnot, to add some details around the eyes, because I think there are some things that need to be refined a bit more. Not everything can be dry brushed. So I'm going to put that in there. And I'm going to tighten that up a little. Oops. So I have a little more color on this. There we go. I just wanted a cleaner, a little more sharper line on that around her eye to find those wrinkles at the eyes just a little bit more. There we go. Oh, she's looking great. I love her. Let's do the same thing underneath this one. Beauty. So next, we're going to dip into that neon green. Oops. There we go. These neons, they're fluorescent acrylic. I love that the colors are so intense. And this one in particular, this thermal green. So I'm going to pick up a little bit on the tip of that brush, just like I did with the other colors. And now watch how quickly that color jumps on that highlight on the edge of her face. Woo! This just makes all of those edges a little sharper, a little more defined, and because there's such a high contrast with that shaded side of the wrinkles look even deeper. Gotta have a little punch of that on that wart on her nose. She's awesome. Oops, a little too much. That's okay. We'll move it around. I'm going to come down here onto these wrinkles. Remember those wrinkles on her lip? I'm going to put a little dry brush there of that neon green. And I'm going to pull a little right there. Now these spots here are the areas where that light is striking her face the most. And so we really want those to pop. I'm going to do that here. And remember that section on the eyebrow, under the eyebrow. I want a strong highlight there and here. But she's just so much fun. And she's just creepy enough. And there she is. Wonderful. I love that she's just that impact, that light on the side of her face. A couple of layers will give you that brightness that you want. I just think she's fun. And don't forget, she needs that little punch right here too, on the neck, on that chin. And right there, I want to punch that up a little. Now there's lots of white graphite lines on this, and those can be made to go away. You can erase the ones that are still clear, but you can actually use a float of lamp black to clean up edges wherever you find it's a little too not clean enough to suit you.
Somebody called you old.
I'm old?
This old gal is almost... Oh, I think they're referring to themselves.
No. Okay.
This old gal is almost enough to make me decorate for Halloween.
Oh, okay. They're referring to this old gal. There. So we can tweak that a little bit more, but I want to move on to finishing off her mouth a little bit. I'm going to rinse out my brush, and I want to work on her mouth. So in her mouth, I'm going to take some of that lavender. You can do this with a dry brush if you like. I just want a little color in there. I'm going to take my point blender. I just wanted to lay some paint in first, and then blend that edge a little bit. So there's her tongue. It matches her.
I think she looks like a relative of mine. Okay.
Wow. Good looking relative.
Mm.
And then she has to have teeth. So
Does she?
not many. We have to give her a couple of teeth. This old crone needs a couple of teeth. I'm just doing that with a little bit of warm white. Like I said, this old girl works up pretty quickly, and I love that she's got so much character. Okay, so she has teeth and she has a tongue. We're going to let that dry, and while it's drying, we're going to work on her eyes. So we're going to get, this is where that plantation pine comes in.
Will the video be on the YouTube channel?
Yes, it will. If you are subscribed to my YouTube channel, you'll get a notification as soon as it is put up. So let's grab a little of that plantation pine, and we're going to put a line around her eye, just at the edge of the iris, like so. It just defines this a bit. And it makes her look just that much more creepy. Now I have a little bit of lamp black. Yeah, I did actually, because I was having trouble with it. So I'm using the end of my brush to put that pupil back in, like so. Because mine kind of got painted over a little bit. Now I like to go back in, or especially around this eye, because she needs a little definition in here. So I want to put just a fine little line right here. This is sort of the top part of the inside of her lid. And I want to put a little bit of that margarita in there, just so that it stays more green than white. And I'm going to clean up the line around her eye. I just like to make that crease a little more defined. do the same thing right at the edge of the eye, just to clean that up a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, just to define the eye a little bit, but as the eye turns here, I want a little shadow, so that line gets a little wider on that side. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the inside lid on this side with a tiny line away from the eye. I want to come away from the eyeball with it. There we go. I'm going to take my dryer here, just going to quickly dry this so that we can move on to the next part. There. Now, there's a lot of little areas that kind of need to be tweaked in here, which we can do at any time. That's, oops. A little too much paint in there. There we go. I'm going to shape that nose a little better. So I'm going to take, I've got a 3/8 angle, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of lamp black. Now, some of these little areas in her face that you can see that white graphite line, you can just float that lamp black into those areas, and it does two things. It deepens that shadow, softens the back edge of that dry brush, and it makes those white graphite lines go away. So this is just that cleanup. I like going around and doing a little bit of cleanup. And it just fixes a few little issues that, you know, might bug you. And I love that it enhances some of those creases and shadows in things. This is the one that I like the most, is this line right here, coming down the edge of her nose. When that shadow is defined, it just makes her look so creepy. I just love it. So all of these little areas, you can take that little bit of lamp black and just float it in so that it softens it. Wherever you have something that you're not particularly thrilled with, you can take a little of that lamp black and clean up shadows, make them crisp, make them clean. Just gives you a chance to, you know, adjust everything. I love her. I think she's awesome. So what good is a crone if she doesn't have great hair, and you need to put in some really great hair? And I love that hers is so straggly and not very pretty. So I start a little way below the hat. I don't want this to go connected to the hat. And then I just pull in some really loose and not very pretty strands of hair. And you can make them overlap each other like so. And she has to have some over here. And again, I start a little ways away and I just let them sort of happen. They're not straight, they're not pretty, they're not perfect. And I love that they're just so straggly and And I kind of want them to disappear behind that crystal ball, so I'm just going to let them stop there. So once those are in, you're going to have to take your angle. This is, again, this is tucking things in and giving them that shadow. So this is dry. So I'm going to take my angle, and it's just loaded with lamp black. And I'm going to float with the darkest value towards the brim of the hat, along that edge, right over those strands of hair. And that little bit of gray will imply that it has coming from under there. And you're going to do the same thing along her face. And that little float of lamp black, as I said, will do a couple of things. It will give you the illusion that that is in behind her face. And it will clean up all of those little edges and give you a nice sharp image. There we go.
Looks like my hair.
So now I am back to my big blender, my large point blender, and this part is important because it is where the light source is. So I'm doing this with that neon green, and it's a simple dry brush, keeping the brightest value of that green to the edge of the surface. And again, I'm working in a circular fashion, kind of rouging it in. I don't want this to be uniform. It's going to sort of take on a almost smoky feel as you do this.
What color was the hair?
The hair is just warm white, fine thin strands of warm white. So here is your light source. You are just applying this little bit of that neon green. If you find that you're not getting the look you want, grab a little bit of that. You know, if it's not bright enough for you, grab a little bit of the margarita and dry brush a little of that in along this edge. It will give you a brighter. There we go. You can see it's irregular. It's not perfect. I didn't really want it to be. I want it to kind of have a smoky texture to it. And then when it's dry, take that fabulous neon green and just let the color run out about 1 inch to 2 inches away from our witch. This is only to imply that this is where that glow is coming from. That cast of green that you see in her face is coming from over here. Now that crystal ball down here is another fun one, and this works really quick. You don't need to putz with this much. This is where I pull all of that, a little bit of that Bahama blue. I know it's an odd color to have in this supply list, but it just needed a little bit of blue. So we have Bahama blue. I still have the purples on my table. I have neon green on my table, and I have warm white. So this part is easy. I'm just going to take a few swirls of this blue.
No asphaltum today?
Yes, there is asphaltum. There's always asphaltum. So I've got a little bit of that blue in there. I'm going to take some of that neon green, and I'm going to put a little of that in there. This is just sort of a Mod Podge, swirl the color in type thing. There's no real rhyme or reason to it, to be honest. It's just to get a variety of these colors in. This was not my best choice of brush for that. I'm going to grab an angle to do this. There we go. Okay, now I'm cooking with gas. I figured I could get away with but that wasn't working. So I'm just going to pull a little of that Bahama Blue. You notice I'm not going all the way to the bottom. I'm more interested in this high edge, this top edge for the light. I'm going to use a little bit of the warm white. And I'm just putting in swirls of the various colors, and I'm focusing up on this portion of it. So there's the swirls. Neatness doesn't count. Perfection is to be avoided at all costs. And we need some of that green, because that green in the light, I love this neon green. It's so much fun. The fun part is that you can put this color on and keep putzing with it until you're happy. In the first one, I had it almost too opaque for my taste. I kind of wanted it to have a little more transparency, and I went a little overboard, but that's okay. I'll pick up a little more blue. And again, I just like that sort of swirly look. It is a... There we go.
People are asking for this kind of stuff, but Christmas.
You want this kind of stuff for Christmas? Well, you're going to love next week's then. I've got a really fun project for you for next week. I have a series of Santas that are based on an old poem called Starlight, Starbright. It was a childhood poem. And there were 3 Santas. Well, I have a 4th, but I've never been really happy with it, so I've repainted it. And I'm going to release that this week. And you'll be painting a Santa Claus, and each one of them is a stanza in the poem, Starlight, Starbright. And you're going to love it. It's fun, it's easy. We're going to be working on 11 by 14 art panel. And I think you're going to enjoy it. I know I am enjoying it. So we're going to put a little bit of glitter in this. I'm sorry, but we need to have some glitter in this. And I'm going to work with, this is a Galaxy glitter. I love these. I'm not a big glitter person, but I really love these. Because they've got that great in-your-face, super sparkly, lots of color, you know, these are just fun. So I'm going to put a little of that out. The reason I chose this one is because of the purple. I think it works well with our little witchy poo. And I'm just going to pop a little of that glitter in here and there, up on the top edge, you know, the highlight side of our crystal ball. And there we go. There's our crystal ball. So the only thing that really remains in this is to add a few little highlights, which we're going to do in a minute. But before I do that, I wanted to discuss this. I'm not going to paint the lettering today because I've done lettering and everything. You're probably getting tired of it, but we are going to talk about it. This is the lettering. And so once this is completely dry, you trace and transfer your lettering onto your surface. And the lettering is painted with the lavender. And I used a 0 rigger to paint that lettering. And for those of you who have not watched this before, almost every video that I have that incorporates lettering, I discuss the lettering. This is a number 0 rigger. And when you press down on it, it opens up to a chisel edge. Although it looks like a liner, it isn't a liner. It comes to a chisel edge just like a flat brush, which makes it ideal for painting this type of lettering. So because that little 0 will actually fit beautifully inside that space. And the more you press down on it when it's loaded, the more it'll open up. So you can fill up to 1/4 inch with a 0 or a number 2 rigger. I use the 10-aught, the 0, the number 2, and the number 4 the most. This brush is absolutely awesome for painting lettering. So that, if you're looking for a good brush to try lettering, check out one of the videos on my webpage. If you go to my website, there is a section called videos. It's in the more category. We have some quick tutorials in there and links to the YouTube channel as well. So go and check it out. I give you a step-by-step on how to use that brush for lettering. This is a great tool to have in your box. Believe me, you're gonna love it. So now we're going to, that Galaxy glitter is going to take a little bit to dry, but I want to finish out her eyes because she's just creepy and she needs finished eyeballs. So I'm going to grab, I need it better, that little angle has seen better days. Okay, so I've got my angle and here's the asphaltum. I know you've been waiting with bated breath. I'm going to blend this out. Now there's a fair amount of water in that brush, so I don't want this asphaltum full strength. I just need it a little weaker. So there is a float of asphaltum that goes under that upper lid, right on the white of the eye. And you're going to do it both sides. And it helps immensely if you have paint in the brush. There we go. And put my wrist right in there. There we go. We got some color now. So a float of asphaltum. She's an old crone. She can't have nice bright white eyes. So I'm going to do the same thing along the bottom of her eye, but I want to keep this section quite bright. Just to the left side of the iris. I want to keep that quite bright. But in the corner here, I need it to be a little dark. And then the bottom. See, look, me and glitter everywhere. I'm going to take my rigger and I want a nice bright highlight spot on her eyeball. But, oh, I almost forgot. Oh, I'm telling you. Lights are on, nobody's home today. Plantation pine. We need to put some shadow on that eyeball. Right on the green. I want to put it on this back side right here. A little bit, just a float on that right side of her eye. And the same on this one. I want a light spot on that left side of the eyeball. And now we get a nice bright highlight right there. I've always thought that that highlight on the eye just brings her to life. And there she is. Something wicked. She is a lot of fun to paint. She is not difficult by any stretch of the imagination. So let's finish out this one last little step on this crystal ball. English is the second language today. So I'm going to make a nice wide float of the lamp black because I want to bury the bottom half of this a little bit. So I'm using a wash of that lamp black.
Is there shading on the teeth?
There is. There's a little float of asphaltum that goes in there. So there is our shadow on the bottom of that crystal ball. And I'm going to grab my other angle. On her mouth, there's a little shadow that goes just under the upper lip. Right here. Right over the teeth. Again, she's a crone. She wouldn't have bright white teeth. And there we go. Now I will probably putz some more. I will brighten more of this a little bit. I'll probably do the same thing to her hat, but it's just tweaking and adjusting all of these highlights and shadows a little bit. But that is our something wicked. She's really a lot of fun to do. If you look in the pattern, there's her boyfriend is in there. There's a skull with a candle sitting on the top that would make a great companion piece to this one. I hope that you really enjoyed this. I certainly did. She'll make a great addition to my front door this Halloween. Hi guys. I hope you enjoyed yourself today. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoy this piece. I think she's a blast to paint. She's not at all difficult, and she makes a great decoration for your home for the creepy holiday coming up for Halloween. Thank you so much for coming to join me today. You know that I appreciate it. Don't forget to visit my YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment in the comment section of any one of our videos. We always like to know what people are thinking and where they're commenting from, where you're coming from. Leave suggestions or ideas. I'm always happy to hear them. And if you have questions, please don't hesitate. I'm more than happy to answer them. Don't forget, leave a comment in the comment section, like the Tracy Moreau live page, and we've got goodies for 3 of you. So there's some fun stuff coming your way. All right, guys, that's it for today. I hope I will see you again soon. Love ya. Mwah. Stay safe.